But I did want to pivot a bit to the work of the ACLJ. Always important to know what is going on, and this is a victory. This is a good moment. We are joined by one of our ACLJ attorneys, Liam. I think you need to give us, though, a bit of a background on what this case is, and then, of course, what just happened.
Absolutely. Last year, I think a lot of our viewers will remember it. Last year, we had a group of young street preachers, evangelists, who hung out in the city of Chicago, and they were harassed. They were eventually arrested by Chicago police in what can only be described as an unconstitutional assault on the First Amendment. The ACLJ stepped in, and we represented them, one, in their criminal case. We got those charges dismissed. But then also, we're suing the city of Chicago. We said that this has to stop, and the First Amendment means that these kids have a right to preach on the street, and we got some major developments this week.
All right, so then let's break it down. Because I know a lot of people have been following this. If you're supporters of the ACLJ, you may have gotten emails about it. You may have gotten blogs about this. You may have read about it. You may have heard about it here on this show. When you hear about these street preacher cases, specifically in places like Chicago, when you visit one of these major cities, you're likely going to encounter a lot of different views, a lot of different people with a lot of different points of view, often with small amplifiers. It's just, honestly, it's sort of the charm and the nature of a big city. But the ACLJ had to get involved directly, and right now, today is a significant victory for us.
Yeah, that's right. The big city is full of sights and sounds, and yet what we saw was a really disturbing pattern. There's only one that Chicago police were targeting, and that was the Christian voices, the voices of the good news, trying to build, fulfill the Great Commission. And so the first thing the city of Chicago did was they didn't respond to our lawsuit in any meaningful way. They filed a motion to dismiss. They said that it was a meritless lawsuit and that the judge should throw it out. We have been fighting this case for months now. We had been waiting to hear what the judge said, and it was a major victory. The judge ruled against their motion, held that all of our most important claims, free speech, freedom of religion, retaliatory arrest, unlawful arrest, that all those claims can proceed. And we're going to start the grueling process of litigation, but that means discovery. We'll see what that means, and we can really start to look at the city of Chicago, see what was going on behind the scenes, what was motivating these arrests. And, I think I speak for everyone on the ACLJ team working on this case. We are absolutely just champing at the bit to get into Chicago and start to vindicate these young men's rights.
I think when you hear that, when you see these moments and you see that, of course, a court's going to say, yeah, they have their First Amendment right, it does give you a little bit of hope that these cases can be won because, of course, they have their First Amendment right to do this. That's why the ACLJ team is there. It's why you've been there for the last 36 plus years handling cases like this. You may hear about the big ones. When you hear about the ACLJ representing countries, representing presidents, representing on the world stage at the UN. But it is very important, just as important, for people like you and for the other ACLJ attorneys to go into a city like Chicago, represent a handful of people, because we know the impact doesn't just end up on them. And of course that happens at no cost to the client because of people who support this organization, the ACLJ, which of course is our media side and our legal side. So if you like this show and you like our legal work, it doubles, everything. It really helps out all of it when you support the work of the ACLJ. But there is some glimmer of hope when your team is able to get in there and cause these victories. I am so happy when people call in and support this show and support what we're doing here, not just financially, but even with just your prayers, because these are still happening. I think a lot of people may think that these cases should have been long gone 30 years ago, Liam, but we're still dealing with them on what feels like a daily or weekly basis.
That's right. So Listen, I'm here in our Washington, D.C. office, and earlier this week, I've been going back and forth with a lot of people on the Hill for some important filings we'll be doing later this week. But in between all of that, I get this email in my inbox, and I check it, and it's from the Chicago court, and your face just lights up because as important as what we do here on the Hill is, as important as some of our big clients are, I know these three young men. I've spent time with each one of them. And it was, it was such a privilege to be able to pick up the phone, call them, and let them know the good news, which was that their claims against the city of Chicago are being taken seriously. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. In hindsight, sure, it was obvious that these were meritorious claims. It was obvious we would get our day in court. But until the ink is dry and you know that the judge has ruled on it, you never know. And so I want to personally thank, because these are young men who are driven by the gospel. They couldn't afford attorneys like us, if we're just being frank.
Sure.
But they have a world-class legal team behind them. And so to everyone who makes that possible, that's a personal thanks from me. And I know our clients sincerely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Look, I think when you hear these stories coming out of our DC office or our lawyers that are around the country, understand that all of it happens because of you. This may sound like some sort of pitch here. These are real news stories that are happening in our organization. We'll tell you about what's happening in the news. We'll give you our commentary. I always will provide those updates as needed here on this show. But we always want to make sure we pivot, talk to people in our ACLJ team, whether it's Cece, whether it's Liam, whoever it may be, Nathan, our whole team here at the ACLJ, and of course, Jordan, who is in and out all over Washington, D.C. and around the world. It feels like, representing so many people. All of that happens. 100% of it happens because of you.